Oh,
Oh,
you're kidding me.
bad timing.
Oh, I just picked it up and put it. Why did I do that?
It's all right. All right. All right. Welcome,
Speaking of finances,
right?
telemarketers. Sorry. No,
No, it's all good. Just impeccable timing as usual. No, I'm just kidding.
no, ever, always. The only thing you can count on, right? Death and taxes and bill collectors or whatever
Yes,
they are.
for
Sorry.
sure. Well, everybody, welcome again to an exciting episode of the Crowdsourced Politics News Roundup. I am the host and moderator of the show, Cypher here, and today I am joined by 5 lovely individuals, 3 of which are on the show for the first time today, and we're going to go get into it. But before that, we are going to start with introductions, starting with Universal Discourse. I'm just going to go down the line here. So Yudi, then Faces, Liberal Cluck, and so on. So Yudi, go ahead and tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
I am Universal Discourse. I stream on Twitch. I'm kind of like the voice of Indian country. And have a background in military, finance, international affairs, human rights, and research. And I always try to bring a bigger picture with a humanitarian perspective to everything. But I am known to get pretty silly. Okay.
Thank you, as always, Universal Discourse, for joining us on this program. We always are loveful. We're always blessed by your presence. Fresh faces, new ideas. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for our audience?
Yeah, I'm Fresh Faces New Ideas. I stream on Twitch. I usually stream 1 p.m. EST. On Thursdays, I start at 5 p.m. EST. I generally just cover politics, and yeah, you can just find me twitch.tv/Fresh Faces New Ideas and at Faces Ideas Online. That's it.
All right. Fresh Faces, New Ideas. This is, I think, your second or third time on the show, and we are more than happy that you are present with us, and we're looking forward to your insights. All right, Liberal Cluck, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Liberal Cluck. I do this kind of as a hobby. I'm usually doing debate bros stuff. I've debated Drone Tech and Sporadicus and Rob Noor and that whole crowd. So it's gonna be interesting doing a more of a podcasty type thing for me. I call myself a lefty because I'm trying to take that word back, but it's not working out very well. And yeah, I guess. Oh, yeah. If you're wondering about my setup, I stream from the back of vehicles. I have a van.
Oh no, it sounds like we're losing you a bit.
Are you back?
Yeah, your connection. Yeah, you're back now. But you said you're streaming from the back of a van.
Well, right now I'm streaming from the back of my car, but usually I'm in the back of a van.
Okay, cool deal. And why do you say it's not working out too well? Why do you think that you can't claim the left term?
Because tankies have already taken it and they've taken off with it. So
tankies. Anyways, all right. Well, we're glad to have you, Liberal Cluck. Drummer 122. Hey, how are you doing? Tell our audience a little bit about yourself. What is it that you do? This is my first interaction with you, so let's get to it.
Okay, well, yeah, I go by Drummer or just Alex, whatever you prefer. Drummer is a name, just to date myself a little bit, is a gamer tag that I had back from the very first Call of Duty game. So that's, I'm ancient as far as the internet is concerned. Like most folks, I started actually in my online content creation career doing a gaming channel on YouTube, which is not fun at all. I don't recommend it. And as that kind of got me burnt out, I decided to put my bachelor's in political science to use, and so I transitioned completely over from playing video games and all that to talking about current events. And I tried to focus my content on reading past headlines, because I find most people problem with social media is that a lot of people will post an article, usually complaining about it, and you can tell after 2 minutes of reading it that this person never read a single word of this article and has no idea what it's about. So that's why I usually go with is sort of like viral articles or news stories, and break them down and go through all of the information, click on the links in the article, and figure out if the, I guess, viral sensation of it is actually just all hype, or is it actually what the topic's about. So I try and focus on that, developing more critical thinking and helping people just sort of like evaluate sources and determine, is this something that's like trustworthy, or is this story kind of sensationalized, or is there actually something of substance here?
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you for that's kind of what we do a little bit too. And found a fellow traveler, so good to hear.
There you go.
Dan the Step, how are you? Tell our little audience about what you do, who you are, and the like.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dan the Step. I am not a streamer. This is a tag I got back in the old RuneScape days. That it was the one that I felt it was pretty unique to me. I have been in the debate scene for a while, but I have dealt with many people, including Rob Knorr, that you probably could remember, and other people that have been notable, including Bosch, through other public panels and such. But but to me, much to what I do care about is explaining the actual truth, because I am, through my academic career, I'm a historian. My main study specifically is with historical immigration in the 1800s. I studied previously around the early medieval period in Europe, but that is a previous focus of mine. But I hope to try to at least get things straight and explain the facts, and to have people end up taking things a completely different direction, and try to get to the conclusion of this certain these topics that we are talking about today.
Good to hear, Dan the Step. I greatly appreciate that kind of insight into who you are, and I greatly look forward to also hearing your opinion about what we're going to be covering on the news tonight. Everybody, if this is your first time joining the Crowdsourced Politics News Roundup, we do this every Thursday at about 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to roughly about 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you have watched a Sunday news show or listened to NPR Friday News Roundup from the 1A, or previously Diane Reen show, that's kind of what we do here. We try to review the news with the kind of analysis only the crowd can provide. On tonight's show, we are going to be covering a huge swath of topics, because it seemed like it was a fire hose this week, and there's just so much. So we're going to go ahead and get to it. Let me do the graphics here. Here we go. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is the Crowdsourced Politics News Roundup, and we're just going to get headed right into it. Seems like the news that has been a fire hose for years, but this week's stream was no different. Let's go ahead and get to it. Starting off with national politics. As we reported last week, Congress moved to stopgap existing spending by federal agencies through December 3rd, when another vote will be required again to provide a short-term fix called a continuing resolution, or to pass 12 appropriation bills to fund the government until the fiscal year of 2022. That measure, however, didn't answer the short-term problem of actually funding the government. The deadline for when the country will quote-unquote run out of money to pay its debts somewhere around October 18th or so. And this issue has played out on the Hill all day, today, and yesterday, and in fact, they're doing the vote right now. So we're going to get into that topic here first. Fresh Faces, New Idea. I know that you've been covering this probably about as extensively as we have on the roundup. Why don't you go ahead and start us off about what you think of this going on?
So, look, I'm not exactly happy with the way this is functioned. Nobody really should be. So basically, what they're doing is they're kicking the can down the road, or they're attempting to. The debt ceiling, what it does is for past spending, and what the Republican Party was basically saying is, okay, the Democrats have to raise it by themselves. And the reason for that was because they want to misconstrue what the debt ceiling was to make it seem like they're opening up for more spending in the future. So everything the Democrats said, fine, we're going to do it by ourselves. So they brought it to a regular vote, which the Republicans then filibustered. And because there weren't 10 Republicans who were willing to break the filibuster, they couldn't move on. Then they tried they said, okay, let's do unanimous consent. So as long as no Republican says anything, it won't end up as a filibuster. They blocked it again. So ultimately what was happening about yesterday was the Democrats had decided, okay, we're going to either do some combination of a single day carve out, a permanent carve out, or just removing of the filibuster in order to allow this bill to pass this way so that we didn't end up with a debt ceiling. At which point Mitch McConnell probably realized, okay, I still need the filibuster to block most of their legislation, so I'm going to blink now and let them pass this bill at least for a couple months so we can have this fight later. And that's currently what they're fighting over. There was a whole bunch of ways that the Democrats could have gone around this to remove it permanently. They should have done multiple tracks to deal with this. The best way I thought to do this was the way Brian Grimm put it, was to tie the debt ceiling bill to the $1 billion in extra funding for the Iron Dome for Israel, and then that way when they voted down, you just call them anti-Semitic because you're not allowed to have any nuance for those debates.
I definitely would agree with New Face ideas, Fresh Face New Ideas with that. Like, it's, as you said, is kicking the can down the road, and which then doesn't really solve the problem. It just inevitably will come up again, until a point where there's, and under circumstances, through many different changes within the system, where they cannot, under no circumstances, ever raise the debt ceiling again. And for that, it's pretty much going to end up becoming like that bubble crisis that people predict eventually. No one knows yet. I mean, there's some sites that it claims within 5 years or so. But I'm not like a prophet or something. But we could understandably, this can be like a scenario possibly in the future, I would assume, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, the easiest way to deal with this is to remove it entirely. We can do that. So there's two ways to do it. They could just vote to remove it, or because if they had to do it through reconciliation, they have to put an actual number into what the debt ceiling is. What the reason they wanted to do it without reconciliation is because what they would do is called suspend the debt limit. So it would just be, okay, we're done with it for now, and then we'll vote to suspend it later.
Right.
If they put an actual number on it, they could say, okay, well, the fear was that the other side would use that specific number. The obvious answer to that is to make the debt limit such an absurd number that it would never be hit. So whatever, you make it $1 zillion trillion, and then it would never ever be reached, so it was never an issue again. And then you would never have to have this hang over your head, because ultimately what it comes down to is this is a hostage that people who want something nefarious can use. And the problem comes at some point there's a chance that the people who hold the hostage will shoot the hostage. And then we end up with economic ruin.
Liberal Cluck, Drummer, Universal Discourse. What are your thoughts about this? Go ahead.
Sure. I'm with Fresh Faces on getting rid of the debt ceiling. I didn't realize that, like, in order to do it, you would have to give an absurdly high number. In order to.
No, that's just one of the options.
Yeah, one of the options. It's not going to get through with 60 votes in the Senate. So, like, that's pretty much the only option we have, unless we're able to get 60 votes in the Senate somehow.
Or the nuclear option, but I doubt that it will be that case. Because no one will ever.
I wouldn't mind doing it with the absurd number in the reconciliation bill. The only thing I can see happening is that Republicans would be like, "Oh my gosh, Democrats want to take the debt up to $1 zillion. How crazy are they?" And they will get some people to believe that, because that's just how that side kind of is on the extremes, anyways. But I don't think that those people were ever people that we were going to get on our side to begin with. So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, the obvious.
Let me go ahead and get Drummer in because he raised his hand, and then we'll go back to you, Dan.
Thanks. Just as a quick, my general opinion on it is, if there's one thing I've learned from knowing a few politicians in my day and rather wealthy people, they will posture and act as much as possible, but then at the end of the day, they will do anything and everything that they can to retain whatever like wealth or power that they have. So from my opinion, I feel like this is like a virtue signaling from Republicans if they're going to pretend like they don't want to do this, that it's crazy, whatever. But at the end of the day, they all know that they have to do it because, like I think Fresh Face said, like economic ruin is what they're risking. They're not going to risk that. Like they might pretend they're going to, but I don't. I think at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, it may be like an 11th hour type thing, whatever. But I don't think it's going to be. It's actually get to that point.
Well, I mean, like we could obviously know what the answer to fix this is to cut much of the spending from the military budget, which is incredibly dense to much of the reason why we end up having like this deficit for the last 20 years or so. So it's what we have. You want to say something?
No, go finish, and then I'll get to you.
Yeah, it's 26 years or so, and like much of both sides specifically, will pretty much will be like they cannot put forth much of their donors at risk with risking much of the money that's already put forth in the first place, and cutting much of that off would end up causing pretty much issues on both sides. And however, no either of them are not willing to give that up in either political circumstances because it's a lifeline to some congressmen to winning their own elections.
Universal Discourse, you wanted to break in with a point. Please go ahead.
Yeah, just briefly, one, I want a debt limit. I mean, it forces you to learn how to work in a budget. I think that's a pretty good practice for a nation to have a debt limit. So I want a ceiling. I want it to stop somewhere realistic, because it's absolutely officially out of control. But second, Drummer, I think what's going on with these Republicans is that they're not worried about their wealth and power anymore. I think they've got that in their back pocket now because of how glib and dismissive they are, that I think that this time they're just doing it to be as contrary and obstructive as humanly possible, because I think they got theirs during Trump and it's in the bag for them. And that's why they're being so smug about everything. And all of a sudden they're very condescending, and they're not behaving at all like they normally do when it comes this time. So I suspect that whatever the last president had with his famous way of, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Seeding the swamp, if you will. I think that they've all profited, and it might even be some of their money that's sitting in those banks that we're about to read about. I don't know. But they're not looking, they're not playing ball the way they usually do. And so I think that they're even a greater threat now, because I don't think half of them anymore are legitimate, qualified politicians and lawmakers.
Well, I mean,
so I'm more concerned with that potential for evident, serious corruption than I am with the numbers that are going to go up and down. I think that's worse than the stalling that we're used to. We've been used to this for how long? 8 years it's been going on? More than that? Anyway, that's my take on it. That's my take on it.
We'll go Drummer first, and then Dan, since your general was addressed.
No, I think that's a fine point. I mean, perhaps I guess I'm simplifying it, but again, like, I think you're correct in that, yeah, the Republicans, especially in our in the House and the Senate, are not, things aren't as they quote used to be, right? Like, I remember going through college a number of years ago, just like the way that you studied politics and talked about the way the government functioned. It's a completely different than what it used to be. Even, I mean, true. I remember when I was in college, that was when Obama was elected for the first time. And that was I remember studying that campaign and reading about just like the way he conducted his campaign versus the way that like McCain conducted his campaign. And it was very clear that like Obama was the new school. This is the new way that campaigns can be run going forward, focusing on using internet technology, calling people on their cell phone, that type of thing. Whereas then just 8 years later, when we got Trump, like that completely changed yet again the way that politics has been running and campaigns been running. So yeah, I 100% think you're correct in that like people aren't acting the way they used to act, and it's hard to gauge what's the strategy going forward and how do we do it. And I think that, like, I hate using the term virtue signaling, saying it's way overused, but like I think that's we get a lot of politicians now who are more focused on, hey, is this going to hit? Is this going to be a banger tweet than an actual like, hey, my job is to run the country, not be funny or popular. Like, I'm not, like, I feel like as a politician, you're not supposed to be well liked. You're supposed to do a good job, you know?
Well, maybe you do a good job.
I'm writing that one down. You're not
But
supposed
also,
to be well liked.
can I
Just
build on that too?
Because real quick, like, why? What is it? Someone saying that like you shouldn't be going into politics to become a millionaire. Like you should go in because it's a civic duty. Like, I think Universal you talk about having a history in like military finance. Like I actually just recently finished my contract in the Air Force Reserves, and like no one who I knew joined the military because they were like, "Oh, I'm gonna be rich one day." Like, no, you joined it because it's like sense of duty and all that sorts of stuff. So like,
College
it goes
benefits. Like, and the
Uh,
benefits.
well, sure, there are the fringe benefits, but like,
welcome home, by the way.
Thank you. But yeah, it's the point of politicians is like you're doing it because it's sort of like a call to action. You're like, hey, I want to represent the people of my state and make sure that their needs are met because that's like where our government was set up, right? You have your representatives who represent your district because your needs of your district may be very different than, say, the people who live even next door to you. Like I imagine the needs of, say, a citizen of New York City is very different than, say, Albany. Anyway, that's all I'm rambling. Go ahead, folks.
Go ahead, Dan.
I would have.
Oh, Dan, did you still want to break in?
You could Freshwoods can go.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to put to the point that they're not acting normal. So the problem is that this actually kind of happened under Obama with the Tea Party wave, and then from that wave then morphed into this like crazier wave. And the problem is not only is this wave a little wackier, they're really dumb. So there's two is this. So I think in the Senate we're actually watching Mitch McConnell lose control a little bit because Ted Cruz apparently just voted no on this, and McConnell's like, "What are you doing? I thought you were undecided." Ted Cruz is like, "Fuck you. I'm going to pretend to run for president." And then on the other side, like, let's be clear about this. Marjorie Taylor Greene is the #1 fundraiser for the Republican Party. She has literally no idea what is happening at any point during legislation. All she knows is communism, Marxism, and anti-abortion. That's all she knows.
No, fresh faces. You're supposed to forget the third one.
But I'm sure there's more. But
okay.
She actually had a tweet today where it was like just insanity that she's pushing out, because the problem comes, and this was something I was thinking about today. Like, we could very well end up with this problem in 24 or in 22 if the Republicans take the House. There's no guarantee that McCarthy's the speaker. There could very easily be some swell to push Donald Trump to be the speaker. It could be some swell to put Paul Gosar as the speaker. There's a chance it's Marjorie Taylor Greene herself. Like, how do you? Yeah, this is why I vote to get rid of the debt ceiling, in the sense that until we can get to some semblance of like a normalcy where we were actually debating issues and not like a subsection of the parties in fantasy land, it's less detrimental to remove.
Sure.
Okay.
Just,
can I go?
Let me comment super quick. Okay,
Universal Discourse,
what if
comment
we
really
never
quick, and then
get
Dan.
to that normalcy? And then go ahead, Dan.
Actually, I was going in order to what Cypher said.
I'm sorry. Say again. Just
was it like Universal, Liberal, and then me?
no. That was just you're next. You're good.
Oh, okay. We have to when I worked with my associate, he goes by YouTuber, at least historian and YouTuber, his cynical historian. We did a thing called like polarization in the United States, political polarization, and a lot of it what we found is that a lot of it comes from the mix of many different things, from like far right radicalization to political figures like Rush Limbaugh and other fringe people from like the John Birch Society, to end up putting in the position to where no compromise should never happen ever. Like quote from like, that's basically the quote from like Rush Limbaugh. It's like, we'll never compromise, never give ground, and always win the battles. And it's like, it's to that phrase is now the fact to much of the parties either side, where basically if any form of compromise is made through like the Democrat Party, they will get steamrolled by their far right like opponents in the primaries, forever like considering working with any of these communists, or whatever word they would say to their opponent, to any of the people they work with in Congress. It's to them, a lot of it is not in the system anymore where compromise can be done. And there's still people who believe compromise should be a thing like the
Most
current
liberals.
West Virginia Senator
Joe Manchin.
Joe
Manchin.
Manchin and
Yeah.
Sinema, who think that compromises should be done through any possible way. But now you have to realize that time is done. The people who support these politicians, like you got from the as we mentioned, the stupid senator. I don't really like remembering names much of
Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
To other fringe, other bright figures, Tim Cotton or whatnot. That it doesn't matter to the cases. Is like the opposition has to be stop everything the opponent does and do everything what we can do and more
For sure.
through any means possible. So that's my frame.
So I'm
One quick second. We've been talking a lot about like aestheticization of politics and whether or not they should virtue signaling, that sort of thing. We do have a relevant episode about that. That is episode 28, Art and Politics, where we go over the aestheticization of politics, what that kind of means, and what we at the time thought it meant for the world and U.S. Going forward. So go ahead and check that out wherever you get your podcast. Again, Crowdsource Politics, pretty much on every single streaming platform. Liberal Cluck, go ahead.
Yeah, so after Universal Discourse says something about needing to keep the debt ceiling, I kind of thought about it for a second, and like I don't really see the utility in the debt ceiling if we keep having to raise it over and over again, because our spending is at a point to where that's just going to happen. As long as we're deficit spending, as a country, it seems to me like we're going to always hit the debt ceiling. And then it just becomes a weapon that the Republicans can use to, if they're even if like what Drummer said, even if they're going to give up in the end, it at least becomes a weapon that they can use to stall the Senate until maybe they can take back the Senate later on. Which at that point they're going to have no problem raising the debt ceiling, as we saw during Donald Trump. But yeah, that was just something that I was thinking about.
For sure. Remember, everybody, taxes pay for themselves, but spending never does. Universal Discourse, I saw you raise your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just happy that that's exactly what I was talking about. Why are we continuing to argue about raising it? I mean, the budget, it requires responsibility and accounting and accountability. I mean, you're going to keep raising it over and over and over, and you created this arbitrary, inflated money that doesn't exist, reality. And what do you mean you're saving the world economy by doing that? I mean, no. Stop raising it and start getting around to being realistic. We've ended a 20-year war. Don't raise it this time. Just reallocate what you were throwing away before, because it's just going to keep happening. And it's the same argument every year. Let's go through reconciliation again. And I'm like, they're like 5 down and holding. I'm sick of it. I'm tired of watching them play football, and badly.
Oh, for sure. To that point, though, I think it is important to understand, whatever you're at in this position, that the debt ceiling itself is being reached because of committed to spending. And the reason that the debt ceiling exists is because Congress, when it was instituted, wanted to have more control and authority over the executive branch. And over the years, the executive branch has kind of melded with the party apparatus. And so there's not that. Now it's just used as, like Universal Discourse said, a political football for people to try to get their way with. If people care about the debt and deficits, then what they should focus on is the budgets themselves, and not debt reconciliation, or I'm sorry, not the debt ceiling. Because if we agree to pay for any kind of spending, and we renege on that for anything, whether it's Social Security money, Medicare, funds for people with disabilities. No, these are the broad ones that liberals care about, and then the military, trade with other governments, and that sort of thing, which is stuff that Republicans typically care about. If any of that comes to a halt, if there's any default on any of that, no one will trust the U.S. government ever again, and that will increase the cost for everything.
Yeah,
So,
the amount of political resources will be pretty much spent if given the situation where the people have no trust in that system.
yeah. And
Yeah.
and with things like Social Security and everything, like that's the thing that people would go after, conservatives would go after first, and then overseas obligations through the military is something that liberals would go after first. And if you go after either of those, who's going to trust the government ever again? You're creating the conditions for chaos, right? But Liberal Cluck, you were trying to break in while I was speaking, and then after Liberal Cluck, Universal Discourse, go ahead, and then we'll wrap this topic up.
Yeah, so I don't really worry too much about the deficits that we have going on. As long as our economy is continuing to grow, it tends to not be a problem. Because with a growing economy, we end up with more resources to be able to pay off those deficits. Though I do kind of worry about like compounding interest on the debts and the debts that we have, which could snowball out of control, I believe, in the future. But I'm no economist, so I don't really
That
know.
is definitely possible. As I mentioned, there's the obvious scenario of where literally they have no choice. Two bad options: raise it and destroy the economy, or not raise it and destroy the economy. That probably will end up becoming a very prominent option sometime in the future, if given the situation keeps rolling around this manner almost every 2 years or so. So, the manner we could obviously agree here is something has to change, or something has to give. And given as you give an example, Cipher, that you have two political parties that obviously want to take out really like a safety net, like a social safety net, and then the outside basis that would probably demonstrably will cause much panic either side, if that given that they take away those circumstances. And I wish I'm not in the scenario where we'll end up having to deal with that, but still it probably will end up becoming eventuality someday.
Won't crypto just solve all that for us, though?
Oh
Isn't that
God, don't get me started on crypto.
It's like
That's a
US
joke, everybody.
government's
Don't take financial advice from me.
we're gonna
I
make
left
our
the call.
own. The U.S. government's calling their own meme coin and end up really recycle their whole entire debt structure through this currency. I mean that would be a smart ass idea. I don't know.
Get everybody
Good,
get
Evie.
100 in Bitcoin and wait 10 years and everything will be fine. That's all I have to say. There you
I
go.
was gonna buy in 2012. I'm kicking myself still.
And we've been talking a bit about financing and that sort of thing. We also have, like, I'm shilling today. I'm just doing all the shilling. But we also have another episode that I think goes in line with this. Hold on a second. I need to read the title. And all right. Sorry about that. I don't have an easy way to copy and paste this, but we had an episode on MMT, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Debt. This explores what MMT is, modern monetary theory, and what that could mean for functional finance, what is chartalism and the like, and how the federal government can use the tools at its disposal in order to fund things that may not be fundable through taxes. So I would highly recommend everybody check that out if you don't know what MMT is. It's a really good introductory episode, and we talk about a lot of it. So be sure to check that out again wherever you get your podcast. I think that we've kind of like exhausted this topic.
It officially got passed.
Oh, it officially. All right, never mind.
Yeah.
So, who? Breaking news right now, everybody! The debt ceiling was raised. I assume.
Again.
Well, past the Senate, it's got to go back to the House. And
Yeah,
then,
but it's passed.
How
The
did
Senate
it pass?
hold
What
on.
was the score?
Yeah, what's the score? That's what I was wondering.
Speaking of football, did they have a touchdown? What happened? Offsides? It was an offsides. Pass interference. I knew it.
Ted Cruz penalty.
We just foul. You did it wrong. Wrong procedure.
That's baseball, but anyway, yeah, that works. That works. Either way, somebody threw in a red card, I think is what happens. Okay.
4 minutes ago. Wow.
Yeah, I'm trying to find.
I'm trying to find a vote record
Where's
too.
our ominous music to go with
Yeah,
this?
the Washington Post didn't have it.
Senate agreement lift.
Perfect timing.
Whatever. Well, it looks like McConnell blinking helped everybody.
Yeah,
That's
because
true.
look, the reason he blinks is because he's trying to keep the filibuster, and if they can convince Joe Manchin, because Manchin's not the only one who wants to remove the filibuster. There's like 6 or 7 of them, and Chris Coons is one of them, who for some reason was at the Global Citizens thing in New York, which was really weird to see him there. Bill de Blasio was there. He's the only person who got booed. That was really fun. But McConnell wants to keep the filibuster, and if they can convince Joe Manchin that they're not going to, they remove the filibuster for this basic thing that's considered so dire, they can convince. He's probably afraid that they could convince Joe Manchin to remove the filibuster for either permanently or for other things, and maybe DC will be a state. Maybe we can have voting rights. Any of these like positive things that we're trying to push for that the filibuster is blocking.
That
Are you
makes
saying
sense.
they
That
went
makes sense.
slippery slope paranoia with it? Is that what
Yeah, that's honestly, I think what he did, because otherwise,
literally?
yeah,
I wouldn't be
they're afraid
surprised.
of- yeah, because if
Yeah,
you
I
lose
am. Okay.
the moderates on this, you could potentially look. I don't understand Joe Manchin's filibuster stuff. Like the reconciliation bill, I understand. It's personal corruption. That's why
Right.
he's against it.
Yeah, true.
The filibuster, like the filibuster at this point, he's got to stop like living in like 1990s and disbelief.
But if you get rid of the
Seriously.
filibuster, then he has no leverage.
Oh, that's
Like,
his
he still
power.
has
That Drummer
he
was
still
saying
has
they would
leverage
do
because
anything.
He's still the 50th vote. But
He's
just said,
got the leverage right now, but he doesn't have leverage if you get above. If one more Democrat gets elected in,
and he doesn't have the
2022.
leverage anyway.
But then he doesn't. He does. He can threaten to filibuster any spending bill he doesn't. And then you also
But
have to,
if they have 51 votes, they can remove the filibuster anyway without it.
But then you also have to understand that they're worried that Republicans are just going to come in ham-fisted and just wreck shit all over the place.
But they will do that
High
anyway.
independent thought.
Yeah, honestly, the I think that's not a real argument. I think we know Mitch McConnell. If Mitch McConnell thought for a single solitary second that the filibuster was in his way, it wouldn't exist anymore.
Sure.
I think the fact that it's continuing to exist shows you that it's there just for the minority. And that's the point.
Just for the minority.
I think another
Go
reason.
ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go
I
ahead.
think another reason
No,
why
but-
Mitch McConnell wants to do this is because he doesn't. He wants the Democrats to just pass the debt ceiling limit by themselves, and I think it's like a talking point for him. Like
Yeah.
Democrats
is.
want to spend,
Sure.
spend. They didn't get this bipartisan deal for us, and he's kicking the can down the road because one of the excuses that the Democrats used was that, well, we can't do reconciliation right now. That takes months, and we're about to hit the limit. And Mitch McConnell's like, all right, well, if you need more time, I'll give you more time, but you're doing this by yourself.
Well, it's not also that. It's the reconciliation process is really weird, where they have to take a whole bunch of votes, and there's plenty of times for people like Ted Cruz or Ron Johnson or Josh Hawley or whatever whack job wants to mess it up. There's plenty of time for them to screw around with it. This is part of actually why I thought they should. I think the direct answer is to tie it to the Iron Dome funding, because there's no way the Republicans are gonna filibuster that. I think that's
That'd be a
like
good idea.
right now. Currently, it's been blocked twice by Rand Paul. You hear crickets about it. You imagine if you imagine if Ilhan Omar had the power to single-handedly hold up the Iron Dome funding. You imagine what type of headlines they won it, and there was a I wish I remembered that. There was a headline that said Omar's squad launches a strike against Israel.
Yeah.
9 people voted against it, and it's the picture is a missile flying out of Gaza, and that was
Was
the headline.
Bezos
That was
on
when
the
they
missile?
won.
Fucking Christ.
It's like
Just
no,
asking.
it's like the blood on your hands is your fault, Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, that was literally the headlines. But
So
you don't hear
Rand
crickets
Paul-
about that from Rand Paul. Well, Rand Paul's holding up. So put it in the Iron Dome funding, and then call them anti-Semitic because you're not allowed to have any nuance when it comes to Israel.
Okay, so
That's
I think I
crazy.
saw Drummer. Did you wanted to break in with a point?
No, I've said.
Okay, cool.
I've said my piece. Yeah, I'm good.
I
All right,
wanted
so
to
go ahead,
reiterate
Universal.
when Drummer said at the end, normally they'll do anything to hold on to their power and wealth, but that's exactly what they were describing right here.
Yeah.
The guy,
sure.
well, he at the very last 11:59, he's like, "I have more power if I." Okay, I'll let her go. And I think that was a perfect example of that. What he was talking about right there.
For sure,
Thank you.
for sure. Okay, I think we covered this topic really extensively, and this has been a great discussion, but in the interest of time, we need to move on to other topics. So if you're just now joining the News Roundup, welcome again, everybody, come one and all. I am Cypher, the host and moderator of the Crowdsource Politics podcast. CSP has been a podcast since about 2019. We waded into streaming, and we do this every Thursday from about 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to about 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to give you the news that was of the last week with the kind of analysis only the crowd can provide. The news roundups are open to pretty much anybody I can vet that isn't completely batshit and won't get me banned from Twitch. So if that is you or somebody you know and they would like to join us on the news program, send them my way. Join the Discord. It is the easiest thing to do. You can find the links. I think it's this way and then down here for YouTube. And the links will be coming at you throughout the show as well. And we also do another podcast called Cipher State. Cipher State is a monthly foreign affairs and foreign policy focused podcast where we do analysis on what geopolitical issues are facing the day. This month's episode is going to be on the recent finish of the German elections, and it will be streamed on October 17th, Sunday, October 17th. Still working out the time, more than likely going to be 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for that. If you can't catch the live show, we will have it up on the podcast with a bit more polish and all that sort of stuff. So you'll be able to get it on podcast anywhere you get your podcast. So let's get into more news for today. And this one is a biggie. The Pandora Papers. The Pandora Papers, everybody. The giant leak of the kind of financial fuckery that happens on the global stage where people are trying to avoid taxes like they try to avoid a scorned
say
lover
anymore.
chasing them down. So let's get into it. A little bit of recap here. So on October 3rd, the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, or the ICIJ, released the Pandora Papers, the results of more than a year spent structuring, researching, analyzing more than 11.9 million records. The data reached 2.94 terabytes of data, and the leak revealed the offshore secrets of wealthy elites in more than 200 countries and territories. The project was the largest collaboration of journalists, including more than 600 investigative reporters from 150 media outlets in 117 countries, and follows the ICIJ's investigative reporting called the Panama Papers. For those that aren't aware, the Panama Papers was a leak of financial documents that then again showed how the wealthy, the rich elites, political hobnobbers and the like hide their wealth. Right? Was it 2010 that those were put out? I don't remember the exact year, but from the fallout from that, a journalist was the journalist that revealed the papers, the original person, was assasssassinated in a freak. Well, was assassinated. They call it a freak accident,
right?
Yeah, the car exploded. So that's how serious this is. Now, we need to talk about it. We need to analyze this because this is something that is huge, but I don't know about the rest of you, but I am not seeing a ton of information talked about on social media like there was for the Panama Papers. Why is that the case? Why aren't people seeming to be as into it, as wanting to talk about it, or what have you? I think Liberal Cluck, I thought your hand went up first, and then we'll go Universal Discourse. But Liberal Cluck, let's go ahead.
Yeah, honestly, when I was reading the story on your really extensive overview of what would be going on over today, I was just like, you know, they're not telling us anything that we don't already know. We already knew that like the wealthy was harboring money overseas. Like this was literally a talking point from like Republicans to lower taxes, because they're like, if you don't lower taxes, the wealthy is just going to store their money overseas. And it's like, okay, we already know. I mean, yeah, it's a big deal that it's happening. What I'm much more interested in seeing is A, if there's anything illegal about what these people are doing. B, if it is, are they going to get arrested? C, if it's not, is there going to be any type of legislation that's going to be passed in order to stop this kind of thing from happening? Of course, this is something that's just happened, so I know that there's some kind of legislation in the works, but I kind of don't have any hopes that it's going to see the light of day, because some other sensational, much more sensational things going to happen, and everybody's going to forget about it, and any steam that this legislation may have right now is just going to go away.
That's a very fair point. We do have a comment in from a listener right now saying they would love to see some type of Panama Papers on our elected officials. Why? Because it would reveal the media and politicians that are on the take. And I think that is a great point. Universal Discourse is next. Fresh Faces, New Ideas. You can go after she says her piece.
Yeah, I got to work with ICIJ in 2017. And, you know, my first thing when I saw this is, all right, where did you get terabytes of data on somebody's personal bank accounts? Second, one of the journalists that I was just talking with very recently was saying the same thing. We thought this would be a big deal, and crickets. Nobody cares. I said, well, because you complained about that the last time too, that you didn't get as big of a bang for your buck as you thought you were going to get. And I think it's because people are too broke and powerless to give two Fs, that somebody finally gave evidence of what we all knew all along. So it's kind of a nah, meh. But so if you took away public reaction, then the significance of it is what exactly? Are they doing something illegal that they needed to be exposed or doxed or leaked in this way? Is this doing any damage to somebody as a result? What was the point of this? What's it going to result in? What's the outcome? You know?
Interesting. No, that's a very good question. Fresh Faces, New Ideas. I will comment on that after Fresh Faces talks his piece.
Okay, I have a couple things. One quick note: I did find the count. It was 30. It was 61 to 38. Richard Byrd did not vote. I have the names. I don't know if anyone cares who voted. Anyway,
thank you.
For his question about on our elected officials, there's actually a thing. It's called Open Secrets. It tells you who gets what donations, and that's how they hide their money. And so that's one of the way our politicians. So the reason I think this has partly been less talked about the Panama Papers is my understanding. I haven't read all of the documents, but I've seen some interesting stuff about it. Most of this is on foreign powers and not so much U.S. powers. And that's the reason why Americans may care less, because it's not directly tied to their politicians. The interesting part to this is that it's either, I forget which state, I think it's South Dakota, is one of the states there people are hiding this money, that it became this like weird tax shelter for like Russian oligarchs or whoever it is. Now, as for who this hurts, this actually does hurt like some of these officials in foreign countries. It can help lead to their removal from office because they realize that they're corrupt, or it could help erode things and lead to more erosion as people like, okay, well, they're hiding this. What else is this? Because I think one of the things in it is Putin has a mistress with a illegitimate kid who's like has like $100 million, and I imagine there's some type of like thing that could hurt him there. So
If we already know that, I doubt it. My thing
right,
is,
but
when the media uses the word hide, then everybody assumes that's the truth. It's not. So why do we think that they're hiding anything? Because, I mean, I've banked overseas. I've had to because of the type of securities I had to deal with. There's nothing hidden. It was a lot of money. Why is somebody who has a lot of money overseas in a bank account, why is that hiding? Why is it assumed? Where's the thing that says they're hiding, they're corrupt here? Boom, go for it. That's what I want to know. Why was this done? Of course, they have tons and tons of money. Are they hiding it? No.
So we'll go
Hiding it from who?
the tax.
Sorry,
It's tax shelters, right?
Yes, it's tax shelters.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
But Drummer raised his hand, so we're gonna go Drummer, then Liberal Cluck, then I will go.
Okay. So when it comes to this stuff, I remember when like I was growing up, there was always the joke about the Swiss bank account, right? Like where that was where everyone hid their money. It was in Switzerland. And the one thing, whenever when I hear about stuff like this, like they call it usually what tax avoidance, right? It's not outwardly illegal, but you're just not paying taxes that you would normally pay if you were doing things like 100% ethically, right? And when I think about this, I'm sure all of us here know at least one person who has worked in a restaurant at some point in their life or has had a tipped job. And this might be a hot take, but like everybody does it. Nobody reports 100% of the tips that they make. Like they'll report maybe 50%, whatever. You can look at the stats. If you're in a career where there is no third party oversight of like what you're making, so if you don't get a W-2, if you have like a self-employed or something like that, their tax compliance is only 45%. So like it's one of these things where the pot is going to call the kettle black. If I'm going to complain that people are hiding money, but I'm also doing it, I'm not going to say anything about it because I don't want that to come. I don't want them coming for me too. When it comes to that stuff. So yeah, and there's ways you can do it, right? I was reading recently that when Steve Jobs took over Apple, he requested to only be paid $1 or something like that, like some ridiculously low pay, but then make the best of it up in like options and stocks. Because like the tax rate on capital gains is always the same, it doesn't slide with income or anything like that. So that's a way of like avoiding paying excess taxes, but he still gets to make his millions because Apple is a very successful company.
Elon Musk is the same way, exactly.
Yeah. So there's always going to be ways to do it, and especially if you already have a lot of money, it makes it way easier. There's always you hear stories of people who have tons and tons of money. They'll have like 20 bank accounts, and they'll all only have like $10,000 in them or something, like something ridiculous like that, where never all of their money is never in one place, so you can never find all of it, and they pay lower taxes on it because they have less of it and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we see this with small businesses too. A lot of businesses will register themselves in like, I don't know, I think it's like West Virginia or something like that. They have like or Delaware or whatever, where there's like no taxes, but then they live somewhere else and do business somewhere else. I knew a guy who flipped real estate, and he registered his business in some state in the Midwest because the way the laws were in that state, if you wanted to sue him, you had to physically show up in that state in order to file the suit. So no one would ever sue him because he did business in New Jersey, and nobody who wants to sue him is going to get on an airplane and fly all the way out to like Nebraska or wherever the heck it was to try and sue this guy. So like stuff like this happens all the time. I don't think people were surprised about it. I think as someone else said that like it's because we're just not surprised.
No, I think that's a very fair point. Liberal Cluck, you still wanted to break in?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that when we say hiding their money, I don't think we mean like hiding from the public. It's more like avoiding taxes, like Drummer said. So yeah, he pretty much hit on that point with more elaborate detail than I would have.
Sure. All right. Seems like most of the people here are on the same page with this. I too believe that the primary reason why we're not seeing as much political backlash against this is primarily because no one likes taxes. I think that's the biggest reason. It's a lot of people, even nominally liberal people, feel like taxes are in general just kind of a thing people have to do, but if they had the choice to not, yeah, they're a nuisance, right? So they don't care if somebody's like stashing some money away somewhere, because if they had the opportunity to do it themselves, they probably would. Now, my thing about this is, and this is probably where I'm going to agree with Universal Discourse a bit more, is that what we need to see is not just what taxes are being avoided, but what that money might be used for, and why these legal entities are allowed to exist that perpetuate such inequality that it's ridiculous. With the thing that is in Oklahoma, I believe it is, or Nebraska, I don't remember the exact state, sorry, so I'm not going to try to say it, but one of the states that was mentioned in this has private trust that they protect your money from everything. We're talking government, alimony, childcare, lawsuits. Like, if you have money in one of these trusts, they are not going to turn it over to anybody, no matter the legal circumstances. So if you are a piece of shit rich person that doesn't want to pay child support because you don't believe the kid is your kid, then you can set up a trust in this area, have it be passed down the generations, just making money hand over fist, and that child will never see a dime of that money. And you can claim to be broke. Like, these are things that just on the face of it shouldn't be legally allowed to me. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I was with Global Private Client Sector, which was massive trusts in Merrill Lynch. And the way you describe it is not representative of even 0.0001 of those clients. So I think the public's impression is very seriously skewed and misinformed. And that's out of respect to the people that I actually had to work with. That type of thing is very much in the minority. Just to let people know that, no, people that have that kind of money are not all corrupt. And they're not hiding. Sure. It could have been they inherited it that way, and that's their option. It could have been that due to their type of transaction, etc., that was the best placement for it. So I just have to throw that out there, because I actually had to work with some of these people that if you knew what they did to earn that money, you wouldn't be so caustic. Or, you know, so just to say that, yeah, just so not to be doomer, everybody with that kind of money in an overseas account is not corrupt. Okay, the majority are completely legit, more than legit, putting their money in the bank in the U.S. The U.S. simply doesn't offer the banking services that the banks overseas offer. When you're dealing with a commodity claim, like the Sazerac mine, for instance, the Rockefeller mine, with a letter of credit that starts at $500 billion. And I had to deal with all of the U.S. banks, and they are not equipped nor willing to handle the liability of it. So they are usually the first ones to hook you up with their overseas banking partner who can handle your portfolio, knowing damn well that the minute you attempt to move it over here, your taxes are due. So tax avoidance, yeah, but they're going to have to pay these eventually, and they know it. They're going to string it out. That doesn't mean they're going to evade. It just means for what they're trying to do, they're going to pay the devil his due when it comes time. So that's another scenario that actually happens the majority of times. Even Wells Fargo's banks, Chase, HSBC can't handle it, and they handle movie budgets. Yeah, you've got things running through private ledgers and AIG. You know, largely Deutsche Bank is one of the first ones that you will deal with here when you have some kind of ridiculous net worth and or assets that you're talking about, or excess of $1 billion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's usually going to be Deutsche Bank, Royal Bank of Scotland, one of these kind of things. There are other banking houses, and what happens is you're sitting with your securities portfolio, with your security accounts in RBS, you know, Deutsche Bank, et cetera, your Swiss bank account, okay. And they make it so difficult for you to conduct your transaction that what they do is they credit another kind of satellite bank elsewhere that's a private bank so that you can actually transact. Because you just don't go up to a security house and go, say, I'm short $20. Do you mind? Okay. Everything is regulated with an advisor. Nothing. You don't just run your $10 million on your debit card. You just can't do that. Okay. So that's what they're doing. They're funneling it out to a satellite credit wise. And then the satellite opens up a sort of a dispensary account. All right. So that the money can move back and forth in those areas and they can do what they do. It's unbelievably complicated when you're up in that kind of net worth. You just don't buy a Jaguar on the credit card. It just doesn't work that way. Your average upper middle class or lower upper class American citizen pays far less taxes, has far much more freedom, much more flexibility, and far more options. And that's the reality of it. So I'm just saying that out of respect to many of my own clients. So, and I'm gonna get coffee.
Okay.
Oh well, I was going to ask her a question, so go ahead, drummer.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was going to ask a question as well. So never mind. Well, we can wait.
Yeah.
We can wait. We can wait.
Yeah, it's interesting that the banks in America can't handle that kind of funds. That's something that I didn't think was a thing. Like
it's probably not to speak for Universal Discourse. It's probably just an insurance risk aversion thing. But to the point that I was making is that I wasn't trying to imply that everybody is just a corrupt piece of crap. I'm just saying, like, to me, that shouldn't be possible. Period. So, go ahead, you fresh faces.
Well, first off, like for what you described, it doesn't seem like it has any other. Like I don't know what the logical use of it other than to be like
yeah.
And now again, not having read the entirety of the papers, as my understanding is it's like 400 pages or something, which is ridiculous because I read all the Fauci emails and that was 3,000. But the whole point of the piece wasn't it like how wealthy people were evading taxes? Like,
yes.
So yes, to be fair to Universal Discourse, she is right. Not everyone is doing it but that wasn't the point of the piece. It was they were doing malfeasance with that money.
Well, I'm sorry to interject, but I don't think that anyone has the accusation that what they're doing is illegal been made. I don't know. Remember reading that.
That's what I'm trying to clarify.
Oh, like, is it illegal or not? I think that's
right.
What,
I'm trying to clarify. Like the whole point of this piece was what they're doing is not just shady because they're hiding it to avoid taxes, but there's like something inherently wrong with what they're doing. Like I am like just saying, oh look, all these people hide their money. Like they couldn't have spent that much time just to produce that piece.
Perhaps they. That's a good question. I honestly don't know. I don't think, and I think that's what Universal Discourse was trying to clarify is that these people, that there's a lot of these people who aren't necessarily criminals, and this isn't like there's not a bunch of like cloaked figures in a dark room going like rubbing their hands together, going like, okay, how can we how can we rip the world off today? Like it's not something sinister. Like these are sometimes like there's circumstances where you have it's been set up for you. It's something you have no choice in the matter. And it's not like the purpose of it isn't to like rob everybody. It's just a tax advantage, they'll call it oftentimes. Like we were talking about before, like when you start a business somewhere and you're doing it so that it's the most advantageous for you. Like I know through my regular full-time job, like I have a 401k. There's a bunch of different other options I can do, and there's like a billion different retirement accounts, whatever, and some of them just have different rates and there's different benefits to them. Some you can take money out early, but you pay higher taxes on those. Others you can like for mine, I can adjust the percentage that I contribute per year and it'll automatically increase to a certain point. Like, so there's just a lot of different reasons of why you may want to do like these different financial options that just exist.
Yeah.
See, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, it's the process of holding on to money is, I think, it seems to be to me like an instinctual matter of like owning something that's yours and I don't want to give it away because it's mine. And you could have different philosophies, like the libertarians would always say taxation equals theft. It's everything, property, your money, your items is yours and whatnot. But to the case of what we can acknowledge, that taxation is a necessary resource to keep a functioning government running and a system credibility to allow people to have a safety net and whatnot and protection from other threats outside of your country. So it's to that matter In other cases, like we can try to like put forth some measures to stop this bleeding of money that we could see from many of these country people who want to force to keep it away from grabby hands from like socialists and whatnot. We could see this what happened after Castillo won the presidential uh, thing in Peru, as he is an open socialist, and the person he beat was not. All the money started leaving the country immediately after he won. And
Well,
to
is that
what we could say, that's probably not going to be helpful for any economy if all the money's leaving, and it's going to be not invested in your place because you are scary ideas, communists. But
Well, I mean, the
but we-
global financial elite don't have a home, right? That's the
Yeah.
kind of the idea.
that's true.
well, yeah, it's as long as you're exploiting the fear, I imagine there is similar to where was it that just won the socialists? It's because they don't want to nationalize the resources because then they're not going to be able to exploit it.
Yeah. Natural exploitation to having the people exploited by their own interest through nationalization. I mean, we could discuss specifically if each of them is a really beneficial matter, like through management wise, and will it entirely be more effective if it's like mixed or through a private enterprise on the effectiveness of extracting resources, or pay acknowledge that much of this issues that pertains to the wealthy owning to banks outside of the country is pretty much only harmful to much of the everyone else. Like it's like sucking away like an amount of opportunity and profits within a whole economy being put somewhere else, holding to just one person or someone's family just because they simply want to say, like, I want to pass it off to my children or
Right, yep.
some political party or some organization to create a cult in your name or whatnot.
It's
It-
your.
we-
Sorry, go ahead. Finish.
Get Cypher, get to go.
I was just gonna say it's your money. Do what you want with it. Like I was making a joke.
Make your own cults, guys.
So
Come to the Caribbean islands today.
I want to speak to something that Drummer said earlier about like putting your money in 401k and how we have all these different options where we can pay less in taxes and this, that, and the other thing. Also, chat, you mentioned like charity and stuff. I think that what these papers are saying though is that these people are like putting their money overseas. Whereas, like, we want to encourage people to put their money in specific locations or do specific things with it within our country, because, like, we want to encourage people to save up for retirement. We want to encourage people to donate to charity because that helps our society in the long run. But if you are putting your money overseas for the purposes of avoiding taxes, you're hurting your home country by taking resources from that country and giving it to another country to tax or do whatever they want to do with it, for your own self-interest, which I think is kind of problematic. However, like what Universal said, if what she said is true, that when the money comes back, they end up paying the tax on it anyways, then maybe it's not as much of a problem. But I feel like the taxes that would go on it would be like just for bringing it back would be a lot less than the taxes that would go on it by keeping it inside of the country. But I'm not really sure because I don't know how all that stuff works, and I wish Universal was here so I can ask her. Anyways, yeah.
Oh, she's back. Look at that. Perfect timing. Go ahead and ask the question, Liberal.
Yeah, so I had a question for you. I think Drummer also had a question for you.
Sorry.
It's all good.
Oh gosh, I forgot what my first question was.
Well,
but,
there we go. It was no
I
real.
guess-
Anyway, it's called
my new
coffee
question.
break. Sorry.
So if these companies or these people put their money in a overseas bank account and they bring them back to America, you said they're going to pay taxes on it when they bring it.
It
back
will
to
be
America, right?
twice quote taxed. It'll be there's processing fees that are often paid
To the government.
in lieu of taxes or toward taxes. Then you have the fact that it's going to hit your U.S. bank account. Okay, presumably. And of course, it's going to sit there, of course, until you touch it, at which point you're not taxable until you touch it. All right.
Okay.
So they siphon it down into something that looks like a reasonable personal securities portfolio. Okay. And then they able to live off the interest. Now, that's one way they continue to legally avoid taxes or delay the inevitable. Okay, so it's this long, slow process. Moving those kinds of monies takes weeks, months, sometimes a couple of years. You have to make bank-to-bank deals. It's not a simple process. But their idea is that they're trying to preserve their assets while they're operating, essentially. All right,
Okay,
so it
so-
will be taxed, and it'll be taxed once it hits the U.S. in a normal way, which is depending. It's a corporate account, it's corporate taxation. Yeah, everybody's going to write their expenses off, whatever. If it's a personal account and you're in that bracket, you're not going to touch that. You're going to live off interest. You're not going to touch it because you'd end up, if you had a margin security, you would margin call your securities account if you try to do that.
Gotcha.
So you make a tax arrangement, and then that tax arrangement is activated upon events. So the events occur. So I need to pay my granddaughter's college. I want her to have her college fund. I'm calling that in. It's going to take a minute. It gets there. It's got a little ribbon on it. Here you go, darling. Don't touch it or they'll tax the shit out of you. Anyway, there it is. It's in there. It's all wrapped up, all right, in variable portfolio, baskets. Usually there's a schedule of drawdowns that can be deferred if you want to maintain and control your personal taxes here as a U.S. citizen. You got to go through all that. You got to go through all that.
So as long as the money eventually ends up back in America, the benefits that the America, as a government sees is really not. It wouldn't make a difference if it stayed here for the entire time.
It wouldn't make a difference if it stayed here the entire time. Exactly.
Okay. I
Doesn't
remember my
matter
first
until you
question.
Well,
touch it.
okay, so I'm going to push back on that just a little bit because every time that we have people try to bring money back overseas, they try to do this whole grace period, and they do the grace
That's true.
period and reduce the amount of tax burden that they would face.
Oh,
At
yeah.
times, it's as low as 3%.
That's true.
Of what not just 3% off, like 3% of what they would have to pay, like 3%.
But Cypher,
3%.
it's legal and legitimate, and it's a service offered legally. Why is there something wrong with that?
That's the thing. Like, this is the whole debate, though. It's whether or not, well, not the debate that we're having, but the debate is being like, should this be something that is even legal? Should this be
we allow it?
allowed to be happen? Because we have taxes in place to do a number of different things. We have them in place to pay for things, to get people to kind of do what we want them to do, and to reduce inequality, wealth or income inequality, both instances. Because as income and wealth inequality get worse, so do the schism between the two, between the haves and have-not, get worse. You have social breakdown, and you have private individuals being able to set up pretty much their own governments. And I think that's the thing that we've missed on this
Capitalism
program.
bad? Is in other
Well,
words?
I wouldn't say that's even capitalism, because
Whatever it's
that's
called.
just because the same kind of problem exists in pretty much any system that has
Money bags.
You have
disparities.
some
Money
people
bags,
who,
yeah,
like
money bags.
dragons, hoard their wealth and eat virgins and stuff.
Like,
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
like
true.
take,
for sure.
take
But-
for example, there was
sounds like money back.
Should the question, sorry, was should we allow specifically a grace period where they can sort of squirrel it away?
Or should this
And I
should
say
we allow
even
them to avoid the
in
taxes
where
in the
I
first place?
worked, there are so many variable options, and people design instruments all the time. So if that privilege being extended is really abused, and if that abuse is so detrimental to the tax base, et cetera, then yeah, they need to take that thing away. There's many other options. There are infinite ways to handle funds without. I'm going to ignore that you have $2 trillion in the bank for 3 months, which I've seen. Mineral claims, common, very common. So yeah, I mean, they could get rid of the grace period.
What if you did it as a way, like if a corporation is set up in like a Swiss bank account or something, like someone's trying to hide the money and then they hid it for, I'm trying to think, like if you had money overseas for like a set amount of period time,
Mhm.
and it wasn't like legitimate, and then when you brought it back, you got taxed double. Is like there was some way for us to do it like that? Just because I don't know enough about like what you're directly talking about, and that actually brings me back to the point because I don't know. And this was I asked this earlier to other people, so because I have not read the entirety of the papers, my question ultimately lies onto I understand what you're saying about that not everyone who has this much wealth is doing something nefarious. My question is these papers directly, because I have not read all of them. I'm asking if you've read that to see whether or not that's the point of this piece. Is it just they're wealthy and they're putting their money elsewhere?
No,
Or
they even included, private little citizens with a special little retirement portfolio and small business owners, et cetera, et cetera. They just expose
so
everybody
it wasn't
for
like
what
the whole
reason.
point of the paper wasn't nefarious. It was they're just putting their money elsewhere.
They're just putting their money elsewhere because that bank has a product that works for them, and their own financial advisor most likely chaperone them over there because there's an active, solid relationship. I mean, the regulations that banks have to operate under. Jeez, wow. They're not really at liberty to do the things that people think they are. So, some poor small business owner that says, I got one of those Bahama bank accounts. Wow, I'm really making it, man. That guy, maybe his company makes $1 million a year. He's so proud of himself. And there he is. The whole world knows. What the hell are you doing?
Well, I mean, unless you're
What is this
like
for?
digging through it, I imagine if you're not the top line number, it's going to be similar to like the Twitch leaks, where if you're like me, I haven't really made money off of.
Oh, I heard about that. What the Twitch streamers make.
Right. So
Yeah,
like
we're going to talk about that
You're the
too.
ones subscribing. Like, who cares? You want to see what I make?
So, but that's wouldn't that be part of my argument for that? Like, just because you're caught up in this, it doesn't mean directly that somebody, if you're making a tiny amount, that you're really going to be more than just like a footnote. And unless somebody's directly digging in to look for that, wouldn't they kind of be overlooked? Because the Twitch thing was so massive, but nobody gives a shit about like anyone on this panel. But they've lost their shit because Hassan made.
Wow, I'm gonna tell my community. You guys, chat. Did you hear that? No F's to give for all of us over here making fools of ourselves to enter. Are you not entertained? Is this not why you came in?
I'm
You
not
don't give
even
two
a
F's about it.
streamer. My God.
Fresh Faces just told us that's the damn.
not
What is my point? Why am I even here? Oh my goodness.
Well, I mean, you did.
Wow.
I do think that you have a good chance of like making it to that 10,000, like 100,000 a month kind of deal.
Hell yeah.
Dan can do it. He's a historian. I have faith in him.
Oh,
I wish.
maybe
He has
I'm not-
pedigree.
like I have pedigree. I have like a background, but doesn't mean that I have the charisma to hold an audience.
Charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. Work
That's
on
what
it.
you
It'll
need.
happen.
But
Before
I
we
mean,
end
I
it-
hope I tried though.
We are all trying our best. Universe
We
Discourse, please
apparently have failed miserably.
haven't figured out how to grift our way to the top.
continue. Okay. We are going to talk about that. We are going to talk about that next. This is a great segue, but I saw Drummer raise his hand before, so I want to get his point in, and then we go over
my
to the
God.
Twitch stuff.
So
for
yeah,
it.
I just had two very, very quick things. First, Universal Discourse, your breadth of knowledge on this financials topic is absolutely massive, which has been huge. I mean, I thought I knew things, and then you started talking. I was like, oh, I don't know a damn thing. Got it.
Yeah, you.
Let me just say, for the first time, I've been told that, but in the 2 years that I've been on Twitch, I've never said before that knowledge is something I'm very proud of. So thank you so much for the compliment. It was very hard earned, and you should meet my advisor. He'd be humbled. He was also Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. I'm Air Force, so there we
very
go.
nice.
All right, never mind. Zip.
So my brief question was just when you were talking earlier about folks that have like these massive assets, like you're talking about like claims like mines and things they're hundreds of billions of dollars, that these folks can't just say go to the ATM and be like, hey, I need $20. Like it doesn't work that way. I have heard of people talk about like what they call revolving lines of credit. And I was wondering, is that something like if you have an asset that's worth, say, $100 billion, I may not have that physical cash on me because I can't access it, but I can take out, say, a loan for 100 grand because I technically have collateral to back that up.
Okay,
And I was
so
wondering if, like, that's something that people do with that sort of thing.
all of them do it. Believe it or not, this is generally commodity backed.
Okay.
That's how come the numbers are so big. That's why it's so difficult to deposit the instrument, because the U.S. banks, remember, they chose to close their gold mines. So commodity-backed types deals, U.S. banks aren't equipped to handle it. Glacier Bank attempted, Epic fail. Nice try, though. That's one of the main reasons, and it's a very simple reason. They're commodity-backed.
Mhm.
They're commodity-backed in a way you couldn't. I mean, they've had 400-year-long family accounts that were converted into bullion, and then, oh, well, what do you do with that? And so they've been basically funded, earning from the transposed assets for their entire family's legacy. Individuals, once they figure out that they can qualify for that, Americans are really savvy at finding out what they can access that normally belongs to a tradition of history and legacy. And when they find out that they have the capital and the assets to get their foot in the door, they love to do that, because then that's the nouveau riche. Oh, I'm somebody. I'm just like, okay. So, yeah, so you'll have I'll try to explain that quickly. So let's take the Sazerac mine, which you know is the Rockefeller mine. Does anybody know how much it's worth?
I think you said it was 500 billion.
2.7 trillion.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
3.4 if you mine the decorative gravel. No, okay. Let's just call it 3.4 trillion. That's how much gold vein exposed when they stopped mining was left exposed. Woo! Great. It's terribly toxic to the environment, but 3.4 trillion. Okay, so Sazerac, second to the gold fields themselves at 8.4. So we have a 3.7 trillion asset. Take off the zeros, 3.7. All right, 3.7 goes to, let's pick a bank. Pick any other bank on the list. All right. You cannot move a mine into a bank, so you have to have a special assay, and that's generally done by somebody like PricewaterhouseCoopers. It takes months. It takes 6 months to 2 years. It's an enormous undertaking. It costs a lot of money. You have to take loans to afford to assess its value and maintain it, including the security. Okay, so now you're in the millions paying to sustain the thing while it gets picked apart, picked over, diagnosed, if you will. And it's incredibly difficult. When the assayer and the surveyor get there, you're talking about a full satellite, what you want to call drilling, sampling, pressure testing. You have no idea. And here's this pile of rock and all that's going on. So you've accrued cost. So the Sazerac in this case I can talk about. At 3.7 trillion, little old Sazerac ended up costing itself exactly 20-30 million for PricewaterhouseCoopers to come up and say, yes, that's 3.7 trillion. We'd love to have your business. Lovely. So before that thing's even been deposited, what is entered is negative cost. So you don't enter at a credit. You enter at a deficit. The asset has depreciation as well. So you're 100 million. Let's say 100 million, right? Knock that off the board. So I'm starting with an overdrawn bank account. All right, here goes. The instrument is installed, and it's installed through a certain process that allows insurance itself to become liquid. Okay, so the asset is what we call wrapped in order to be made liquid before you've begun to extract, because you couldn't possibly afford to extract. Now that's going to be another 5 to 8 years, by the way. You're going to need about 10% of its net worth to get it going. You see how that works? Look at already. That is your typical, right, rounding it up. The point being, that is your typical process for these so-called secretive criminal little billionaires. They've gone through that. They earned what they made from that. And that's the easy one to deal with. So there's an example. Okay.
Good to know. In the interest of time, I am going to have to cut this topic there. But we were talking prior to this about getting into the Twitch stuff. So for anybody that might not know what is going on with Twitch, Twitch had a massive data leak. We are talking proprietary information and the financial payouts to over 2 million streamers. So the things that have gone out and gotten public that people put together quickly were just the top 10K streamers that got payouts. So if you made less than 25K, you're not in the top 10K of streamers. However, everybody's financial information about streaming was in that leak. And because I am evil and a genius and a data scientist, I am going through it one line at a time to try to get all the information that I can. So be paying attention to this channel, to the Discord, and wherever else we are on social media, because because I will probably be putting together another show called Data Strain that will do data science projects and the like to get kind of into the weeds on these kind of topics. Now, while this wasn't as interesting as the Pandora Papers, it does hit us close to home, and the kind of notable earners are the channel Critical Role, which is a D&D streaming channel, earned over $9 million from August of 2019 to October of this year, and then Hassan Abi earned over $2 million during the same time frame. So what does this mean for the Twitch community, for us as Twitch political streamers or political debate hosts or people that are kind of on the periphery and kind of just join in? Like, what does it say that, Critical Role is making 9 million and Hassan's making 2, and then pretty much everybody else is making nothing in comparison?
Entertainment value,
Well, yeah.
scope of audience.
Yeah.
What does
true.
Critical Role do that
Yeah,
Hassan doesn't? Everything.
Well, I mean, Critical Role got me into D&D in the first place, so it's
That's
like,
it. Do you know?
That's what it
how-
got brought me.
Yeah, how large is the D&D community? It's not just that; it's
Millions.
generational. Everybody is a member.
Okay. One, and also Critical Role is probably one of the main things that brought way more people into doing like online tabletop role play than most other
Yes.
shows or other things like that.
They revitalized it.
Yeah.
True.
So there is a point to say to them, including to Critical Role, the people who run it, is that they run it like a company. They have to pay many staff members, many cast members who are part of the shows, and also the production team and the editors and whatnot.
Yeah.
And they run it as a Twitch show, so it's like they've been doing this for a good while.
Yep.
And they gathered a wide audience. I'm not a stand for much of the content. I don't watch anymore after I started doing my own stuff, but I can agree that the amount they made is probably given to what I would assume someone who makes a TV show
That's
Yeah.
true.
or more.
That's true. In fact, that's a
So-
low ball.
Yeah.
That's low. That's like lowball. Then let's go to Pasanabi, $2 million. It's like, how much was his like mansion? Like 3 million.
3.
Mhm.
But yeah, but it's
Yes.
not something he pays with cash. And this is all of his income. Like,
Mhm.
Well,
He's-
that's
Well,
not the leak
Twitch isn't.
specifically was
Twitch
subs
isn't all-
only. It's not. It's not
Whoa, whoa, hold on,
sponsors
hold
or
on. No, no,
donations.
he-
Yeah, let-
talked about this.
Hold on. So, just to clarify, the numbers that we have only include what he gets from Twitch. Everything that he gets from Twitch, directly.
Yeah,
Twitch.
there's
doesn't
also
include-
sponsors.
Doesn't include
Which
sponsorships.
he doesn't do. Like,
Well,
the
No, but
Yeah.
I'm saying in general. I'm not saying for him particularly. I'm just saying, so it's everything from Twitch. Now with Hassan, he gets ad money from YouTube. He gets probably donations, and he's doing another show with OH3 or H3, right?
Oh,
He
it's
just started-
H3. Yeah,
Yeah.
H3. Doing. They called it, I think, leftovers.
Yeah, the leftovers.
Yeah.
leftovers or something like that.
I mean,
It's just started.
As a someone who has watched both of them, it's not a good business move to do something like that. I don't exactly have the best things to say about the responsibility of Ethan Klein's attitude of wanting to have people part of his shows, specifically like with the stuff he did with Trisha Paytas was very. I don't find it to be much entertaining, but I guess he thought he was worth the risk, which ended up blowing up in the face. So,
Who?
So
And like
it's-
who?
Yeah, I
You know,
don't
that
watch
tells
those
you
kind
right
of
there the
shows.
problem is
some socialite who has the probably worse impulse control than Donald Trump.
okay, but I mean
Wow.
that's the problem. That's the problem. You have too many people going who, but if you said Critical Role, everybody goes yeah.
Yeah.
I've never
That's
watched
the problem.
Critical Role.
I haven't watched
They-
it either, but I know what it is.
Do you know what else
They have
Critical Role
professional
has?
actors on there as well.
Yeah.
So-
That's
Is that
well,
what
not
that
only
version's
that they can
on?
afford them now, but Critical Role does this. Everybody knows they like to say boomer this, boomer that. It's been everybody knows the boomers got the purse strings. Critical Role appeals to them, so their fan base is die hard. It's like they will be inheriting people's houses when those generations go because of the adoration
Right.
and the significance. It's like investing in Star Wars and having your ashes buried in a
Yeah,
Right.
I would never want to be in that position of having fans look at me that much, where you end up in a
But you'd be
position
dead
where-
and it wouldn't matter.
No,
It would- it
it's
wouldn't bother you a bit.
the whole entire position of you having your own privacy is now gone with just having that show.
Well, that's if you choose to do it. Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like when we're talking about some of these numbers, and some of these people, like for example, Hassan is like really the only one of the tops that I've really watched. The dude keeps his sub count up there.
Yes.
He pulls like I was briefly glancing. He had like 28,000 people on his stream earlier today.
Yeah.
So you assume I think he's like 50,000 subs or something. You assume he's making like $2.50 per person at a minimum. So it's you got to multiply by 3, and that's about what they make per month. And that's like, so it makes sense. Like when you're at that level, when you're pulling in that number, the people were surprised. This is so stupid. This is like the third time in the last 4 months people are surprised that Hassan makes money. And it's like the dumbest. It's the dumbest content.
Yeah.
It's so lowbrow.
It's like
but-
you're a socialist. Why you're
Socialism-
making that much money? Like
But you
I'm so
remember
tired of hearing socialism is no house. Socialism is when you're poor. It's
you
the
remember
same-
what social you remember what he started. Don't you remember Twitch's gamers? These guys were
Yeah.
world class tournament gamers. They had more when they were
Yeah.
gaming than they make off Twitch. So he's not making the money. He took a cut.
Well, I mean, he was Young Turks and stuff too, right? So
Yeah, that's
Well,
what
I'm just
but this guy was like
a little bit of nepotism. Yeah.
this guy
Yeah.
was like A class, right?
I mean,
so that
like-
he decides to open to politics is kind of ridiculous.
Well, sure, like you
Wait.
understand is that like he
Well, he's
came
Destiny
from
was.
Young Turks first,
That's
Yeah.
it.
which he ironically is the uncle to Psych Uger,
Jake
Yeah.
Uger,
yeah.
Jake Uger, and to where now we was able to hone his skills through that platform to create his own audience for Twitch.
Yep.
And I have mentioned previously in other panels that I find the nepotism a bit weird, but to admit to himself, his platform is his own, not Cenk Uger's.
Yep.
No, he totally
So it's
earned
just,
that. That dude,
He earned that
he
himself.
created him.
Yeah.
Everything he did, it's all him. It's pretty admirable what he's done, but I mean, he was making more tournament gaming, champion gaming.
What? I don't think Hassan was a tournament.
Hassan wasn't a gamer.
No, he wasn't. He
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
well, when I came on,
Destiny.
he was.
Destiny was.
Yes. I think
Destiny
Destiny
wasn't
actually
at
just
that
got
level,
kicked
though.
off.
Hassan was. I mean, he
Or
was
maybe well,
fourth-
we do have
fourth
that
place.
He was
in-
pretty big in like
StarCraft.
StarCraft.
Yeah, he was national. He was world ranked in StarCraft at one.
Yeah,
point.
world ranked, yeah.
So,
But when I
don't
came
want
on,
to try this.
Hassan, when I first heard about him, that's what he was doing. He was gaming. He wasn't doing politics at all.
So-
and then he had
Yeah.
that kind of weird dating game thing.
Well, also the one thing that was very unique to Hassan was that during the beginning when I noticed about him doing this whole Twitch thing, is that he was very like persistent to doing this every day,
Yep.
or at least
He does
he
it like
almost
8 hours a day.
he does it like 8 to 12.
Like,
When he
I
was
mean, it's
doing it
their job,
earlier,
right?
he was much worse. He was much worse earlier, where he was doing this almost like after he gets back from work, he streams till he goes to sleep,
Yep.
wakes up, streams, go to work, go back to sleep, and then he was like, "I'm just gonna go and just do this stream now because I don't want to work." So then he takes that platform and does this as a living. I don't. That's pretty ballsy to do now, as he's in a position to do whatever he wants, and he has an audience to stick with him. But
But it is work, and it is a job, and it's a work ethic that he has, and it
Yeah,
shows.
yeah.
And I bet he doesn't care if you find out how much he made, because he says, "You know what? I earned it. Want the receipts? Because I got them."
Probably. Now,
the-
hold
the
on.
sticky
Hold-
thing- go ahead.
time out. So, Drummer's been trying to break in for a bit, so let's get him in, and then Liberal Cluck, you go ahead after Drummer's done.
But yeah, just to reiterate, I guess what everyone's saying, like when Dan was talking about like the amount of time that these people put into it, like if you look at the top streamers now, like they're all set, like they have all their graphics, their effects, their flow, they know what they're doing. But if you actually go into and look at like, because sometimes when you go into a stream, like, and you talk enough, whatever, like you can get them to talk about like the first days, the beginnings, whatever, and like you realize, like we were talking about Destiny before, the man's been on Twitch for 10 years to get to the point that he's at now. Like you look at somebody like probably my favorite example of like how anybody can do this, you just have to be entertaining, is like if a lot of you know who he was, a professional Overwatch player, was XQC. Like when I first started watching him, this guy had a $10 folding table and a computer with no case. It was just components sitting on his desk. And this guy would stream to 40, 50,000 people. And he would stream 12 hours a day. And also play for a professional team. Like the guy was a machine. So yeah, when you find out that he makes like several $1 million a month, I'm like, yeah, if I streamed 12 hours every day and had a professional team and was as entertaining as this guy is, like, yeah, I probably would make the same amount of money. But and I think people get so caught up in this, like, oh, it's just a dude in front of a camera playing a video game all day. And then if you really watch what they're doing, like you understand, like, yes, they have like a mod team that they have to manage. They have to be entertaining. Like nobody on Twitch who's successful sits there in dead silence and just plays a game. Most of them are they're characters. They're funny. Yeah. They have a personality to them. And that's difficult. As I mentioned earlier in my introduction, like first thing I did on YouTube is I tried to have a gaming channel. And like, my first thought was, oh, I love gaming, dude. I can be entertaining, right? No, it's not. Like, it's not fun. You get so burnt out on it because you're not playing the game because you're having fun. You're playing it because you're like, oh, well, this will be entertaining. Oh, I should react really crazy right now. I should like jump up and down because something really wild happened. Yeah, like if I was playing just on my own, I'd probably just sit there like, oh, that was cool. Like, because that's what most of it is. But like, there's a reason why they made it much. And like, when I read all the stuff, I don't care. I think it's funny. Like, is it funny that Hassan claims to be this big socialist, yet he's like a multi-millionaire and has a lifestyle that is so far in excess of the average person? Yeah, I think that's really funny. But like, does it matter? No, like, who cares? Let the guy make his money.
Well, yeah. The other one is only my understanding from this is Amarath is the only like one in the top 10 who's a female, is my understanding.
Oh yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of like sexist responses to her.
True.
Because of that. I imagine that's an issue as well.
Yeah.
But like,
do you want to bring in something?
Oh, I just wanted to get Liberal Clucks in first, and then we can go back to discussion. So.
Oh, I was just going to say that the funny thing about Hassan is that he made all of his money by shitting on rich people and being a socialist. Which is just, so, I mean,
ironic.
Said it, so.
Yeah, there, when I kept getting criticized about it, it's like, you're a leftist. You are which assuming that I'm a socialist. When I finally got this new setup and this new computer, I have this expensive paintings behind me just to make a point. Like, I'm not I'm not like this person who has like the means to wanting to create an environment like a social, because I usually identify with sock dams, which people would be like, cringe. Oh my god, you still are liberal. I mean, I guess, but like,
shut up, liberal.
Shut up,
Dan,
but
you can take back the leftist title with me.
yeah, it's
I mean, I'm a stock up too, and I tell people, listen, once I, if I get more viewers, then I can get a little bit of money, and I can make this nicer, and we can focus on other things. But I'm attempting to make this like what I do. So once I take care of me, I'll worry about taking care of the rest of you. But
yeah, to be clear, these are not gold, by the way. It's just I'm not that
didn't
rich.
think they were. But thanks for the clarification. I think it's what Fresh Faces was saying about the sexism. I think that's actually a really good point. I read in Kotaku shortly before this cast the same thing that he mentioned, that there was only like maybe 5 women or 5 femme presenting people that made any sort of money, and everybody was like wigging out. Not everybody, but a lot of dudes were wigging out like, oh my god, booby streamers are taking all the money, it's so lazy. And I'm just like, bro, you're just mad because you can't do it like that.
They did get
Well, I
mad.
mean, how
They were
long
like, yeah, they were all like, where's the band-aids? Where's the nip band-aids? Because like I'm doing hot tub now, screw it, And I was like, knock yourself out.
yeah, how long was
tubs,
the hot tub streams?
It lasted for like 2 months.
2 months.
I was so
Yeah.
I was like, fuck off, like, man.
Oh,
One of
Wait,
my
are you saying fuck off to the people that were bitching about it, or fuck off to the hot tub streaming?
Like I
Tired of
honestly,
it.
it was because what happened when I came in at the tail end of it, basically when Twitch separated them,
Yeah.
and people were like, okay, so it's separated, it's its own little thing now, it doesn't interact with like other stuff, and they're like, well, I still don't like it. It's like, why? If it's separate
Gotcha.
from anything else, it doesn't interact with anything else. Why do you care? Like, just go do it yourself then.
It's killing me.
Here's something about this hack that I think is kind of scary. Twitch
is.
is like an Amazon, like proprietary, like Amazon owns them, and like Amazon is filthy rich, and yet there was a hacker that was still able to get into its information, and that's
Yeah,
insane to
exactly.
me. It just demonstrates how unsafe our information actually is.
that's what worries me.
Thank you, Senpai Chow, for the raid. Appreciate it, buddy. If you're
Oh,
just
hey,
joining the Crowdsourced Politics News Roundup, I'm your host and moderator, Cypher. We do this every
Senpai.
Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to about 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, covering news it was for the last week with the kind of analysis only the crowd can provide. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. If you like what you heard, go ahead and hit that like button. We appreciate it. Please continue.
Senpai notice us.
Yeah, I'm gonna show. Well, I've probably gotten to the point where, like, we can agree. I mean, like a lot of the stuff with like the stream is I would admire to at least them wanting to figure out different ways to make content, and it's I think amazing. I think these creators should get exactly what they want because they pretty much would deserve it through a method of outside without the middleman. I mean, there is still the middleman of Twitch and taxes, but it's and to what reminds me of like one of my favorite streamers who are doing this whole entire gimmick was like Alex the Rambler, and he was doing basically something like this. It's in the private chat, but it's going.
Your
That's
private
alright.
chat
Oh,
is
there
actually
it goes.
showing up to the people in your public chat.
I know. I gotta change the way this is done. Sorry, guys. But it's
So
on the
much for
stream,
that.
everybody.
It's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
leaked. That's how it happened.
Yeah, just like straight up like joke. All of this is pretty much given the situation as like we don't think like it's middle finger to the people who are in charge, but there's going to be other trends in the future. That's how we all understand memes work. The trend comes.
We got the whole licking trend right now, right?
Oh,
What?
Licking ASMR.
What's the licking? Oh, that's always like some good-looking girl making noises
Yes,
in the
it's
microwave.
because
microphone.
it's to simulate. We all know what it's to simulate. Everybody, it's ASMR.
I don't know, Cypher. Why don't you tell us what it is?
Dick sucking. All right. Yeah, I'll just say it. Fucking
Oh,
dick sucking.
I heard about that once in Australia. Yeah, way down under.
There's this girl that does this thing where she puts her fingers on the microphone like this,
Yeah.
and it makes noise. Weird. She does a pretty good job at ASMR, I think.
Actual ASMR is all right. But before we move on to the next topic, because we are pressed for time, I wanted to get in a comment from, maybe it isn't me, a faithful follower of the show that let me try to find it again. Let's see. It means that, oh, here it is. So this was when we were first talking about everything that was going. Oh shoot, can't see it. Hold on. See, I gotta
Critical
fix
Role.
my stuff. There we go. So when we're talking about Critical Role, it means that they're selling what people want, and most want to
Yep.
be entertained more than they want to be informed.
Also,
It's like the
you have
music
the
industry
broadest audience.
makes some cheese and the majority eat it up, do smart music, and it doesn't sell.
It does not sell. Correct.
So we tried at Crowdsource Politics. We try to be a kind of middle ground to that. Hopefully it's working. I don't know, but I want to get your guys' thoughts about the whole art doesn't sell, but pop music does kind of thing. Before we move on to the next topic.
Wait, isn't that what an NFT is? Isn't an NFT art? Aren't those selling for like millions of dollars?
Sort of, yeah.
Well,
Right click,
art's
save
extremely-
JPEG.
What's like good art is extremely subjective, though. So
For sure.
maybe pop music isn't complicated like classical music is, but it doesn't make it not good.
True.
It's not.
You're
You're
muted.
muted or something.
Am I still muted?
No, you're good.
You're
now.
good now.
Yeah, it says, well, rock and roll died out, so I don't know what else to say about certain things. Stay around, and there's those who move on. It's not. I mean, I would probably guess something like that. I'm not a music critic, so
Art, and as a musician and a producer, here we go. Art is seldom produced for the desire of others unless it's commissioned. Some of your greatest, what you call classical art, was commissioned for the exclusive, sometimes pretty cringe desire of a patron. If it wasn't for that he treasured his precious, we would never have seen these great works of art. If you take it into anything, if you take it into music, mainstream, I don't know, my God, Prince, with all that spectacle. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
those songs were, in fact, commissioned from him by his patron, which in his case happened to be the label he was on at the time, the studio, because that was before they incorporated. Anyway, so literally the works of major music artists are commissioned. So somebody desires this. It's a big difference. It's the difference between art and pornography. Desire.
And I think maybe it's me, kind of like the reason why like something like music is the way it is now is because it's what the majority of people just find fun. Majority of people aren't listening to music because they want the complexities of how the chords are put together or whatever. They're listening to it because they want something to bop their head to, or some cases twerk to, or whatever they want to do. That's why most people listen to music. That's what music producers are producing because that's what most people want.
And then there's the performer, Beyonce.
Well, yeah,
They're two different things.
But you got also the performer Nicki Minaj.
Nicki Minaj was, yeah. You can go down the list.
And then
it's
Little
like-
Kim, and then who was before that? Yeah, I got you.
Whitney Houston, and it was on and on and on. So there's the Beatles with that histrionic display. The desire pitches, with performances often. It's much less often that the music rips your heart out, steps all over it, and kisses you and feeds it back to you, does that to you. It's much less often than a song blows you away to that degree, that is the song that you live and die to. Very rare. And so that's the reality of music and its effect on people. And then you have the independent music scene, which is just a bubblegum machine of same thing, different color. Because standards drop sharply. Or you got, as they said in Purple Rain, no one's digging your shit but yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The artist, right? That doesn't care what you want, right? So, I mean, all that happens in music. So, but it's not just carte blanche. Oh, if it's bubblegum pop, it'll sell. Oh, sure, it'll sell a lot, but there's quantity and quality. I mean,
Okay, next topic.
Yeah, no, for sure. In the interest of time, we're going to combine these two topics that we need to talk about coming out of the Justice Department. So we have a federal district court granting an injunction on Texas SB 8, SB 8 being the controversial, shouldn't exist anti-abortion bill that allows anybody under the sun to sue a provider or anybody that helps a person get an abortion. And then there is also the DOJ fighting back for school boards. Announced that earlier this week in a press release, Attorney General Merrick B. Garland directed the FBI and U.S. Attorney's offices to meet in the next 30 days with federal, state, tribal, territorial, local law enforcement leaders to discuss strategies for adjusting this disturbing trend of people going to school boards, disrupting it, threatening staff, and the like. These sessions will open dedicated lines of communications from threat reporting, assessment, and response by law enforcement officers in order to handle this absurd level of fuckery that is happening with school boards. So these are two topics. I'm going to combine them. We can talk about them on the like. Liberal Cluck, I haven't heard much from you in the last couple of things, but go.
Let me go stage left on that one because I hate the topic. Actually, my opinion is both of those situations is from the same thing, ignorance. But now Liberal Club can take the floor for the next 10 minutes. Okay, it was very good to hang out. I gotta go, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, boss. Bye, everyone. Bye, Dan.
Bye.
So, with the first one, I'm super glad that there was a federal judge that is putting a stop to that. It's unfortunate for all the women that got scared out of being able to get an abortion when they needed it while that law was in effect. And also unfortunate for the clinics that had to shut down because of that law. But I can't wait until my blue state passes a law that allows me to turn people in with guns and get $10,000 because I have a student loan that really needs to be paid, and I don't think Biden's going to do it for me. As for the second one, I'm much more interested in the second one because like this whole situation has I saw a video of people protesting outside of a school board official's house, and I was just like, this seems to me like it's way too far. Like, what are these people doing? This is a school board official. But then like when people did it to like the FCC director that wanted to gut net neutrality under Obama, I was all for it. So it seems to me like there's like levels of vitriol when it comes to the way people protest that I'm able to accept based off of probably what they're fighting for and like what level of government they are in, which is just something I found interesting about myself coming out of all this. But yeah, a lot of people are misconstruing this as like the DOJ is trying to silence conservatives. If you ever come across one of those people, just ask them, like, do you think that people should be able to threaten violence against school board members? Because that's what this is all about. It's not about silencing conservatives. They even say, Merrick Garland even says that how did he phrase it?
Protest is allowed. It's like a right.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
directly.
Well, he had it really well phrased. It's like uppity protest is encouraged, just not threats of violence.
Right.
It's yeah. And I don't know why these people think that it's a silencing of the of conservatism. It's just I think that's a talking point that just kind of started somewhere and has spread. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on that.
I want to point out that your self-reflection I find to be very encouraging. I wish more people would do that. So kudos for me to you on that self-reflection about what you are willing and maybe not willing to accept based on politics. So thank you for sharing that. Let's see. Drummer, what are your thoughts about this?
Sure. I guess we'll start with Texas. Reading through all of that, because I remember, like, obviously on social media, that was a pre-trending, blew up. Everyone was talking about it, and a lot of people had varying degrees of misinformation when it came to it. And I remember going through and reading it, and I realized, I was like, wait a minute. So no one's actually ever going to jail with this bill, right? Like, they're just being fined. Like, it never said, they were very, I mean, even though I don't support it, I will say they were very clever with the way they went about it, in that it was never made illegal. You could just be fined for it, right? Like, I don't ever remember reading anything where it was saying, oh, we're going to actually like put somebody in jail for doing this. We'll just fine them, which I thought was, I was like, wow, if you want to do it like that, yeah, just don't technically make it legal. It was really weird. But I was really, I guess, like there was all the jokes about like the was it the Satanic Temple or whatever, that was like, well, wait a minute, like what if it's a religious like sacrament, then you have to allow it, and they found the loophole, which I thought again was another really important thing for like religious freedom, right? Even though it, maybe it's a bit of a meme for some people, but at the same time I think it's also very important that we allow for that loophole, because then that allows other people to practice their religion freely and whatever. So I'm glad that there's was it injunction or whatever, that they're
Right.
taking a second look at that, because even though I thought it was very clever the way they went about it, I think it is kind of scummy to basically push an agenda without actually like taking the accountability of arresting someone for it. Because if they straight up did that, if they started arresting people, then it would go right to the Supreme Court, and there's no way it would stand, because they were just doing something that constitutionally was illegal. But they just did it and said, well, let's just assess people fines, and then people stop doing it because they just don't want to keep paying the money or whatever. And in fact, they didn't even have a law enforcement agency, right? It was just a like a whistleblower website where you could just go and like report that someone did it, and then collect your right. So like they did it without they took like zero accountability. And I was like, wow, what a scummy way of writing legislation. So I'm glad that those are going. And when it comes to like the protesting, me personally, I've always been big on just general political strategy and optics, and saying, okay, like you may be really angry about a certain situation, and say like recently, you may want to follow your representative into the bathroom and harass them. And like, that's cool on social media, and it makes a great Twitter video that everyone's going to like. But that's all it's going to do. When you're trying to persuade people and you're trying to get people to agree with you and look at you as being like, in that situation, you want someone to look at you as the videographer, as the hero. You're doing the right thing, and oh, look at this politician just stonewalling me. But as soon as you cross a certain threshold and say, follow them into the bathroom, well, now you're going to get even maybe a more moderate individuals going to look at that and go, wait a minute, that's freaking crazy. Like, I wouldn't want someone following me into the bathroom. Like, that's wild. So while I do support people's right to protest, you do have to think of it optically and say, well, I want people to agree with me. It's not just about me venting my frustrations. It's about me getting a message across and getting people to agree with me. So if you're going to a school board meeting, sure, pack a school board meeting, get 20, 30 people to show up who can all say like, hey, we're in agreement about this one thing, but go about it in a way that is going to get you what you want, right? Like, say, appoint a spokesperson who's going to speak for the group of 20 or whatever, and get to that. So I think it just goes to show, like, I support people's right to protest and all that, but there's a way to go about it that's smarter and gets what you want to get done.
Right, yeah, I can agree with that, especially with the bathroom thing. It would have been so easy to be like, oh, you're going to the bathroom? All right, I'll just wait out here. Like,
sure.
I think people would be less off put by it. Fresh Faces, New Ideas, please go ahead.
All right, I have a lot. The bathroom one, I actually just covered on my screen. Just to be clear about this, if the events that happened with constituents talking to her happened in the reverse order, the bathroom one would not be bad. Kirsten Sinema is a goddamn ghoul who has made it very clear, unless you pay, literally, I'm waiting for somebody to come hand her a check so they talk to her. That's the only way she'll have a conversation with you. It is incredible how much disdain she has for her constituents. Now, onto this Texas law. Just because there is a injunction on this law does not mean that you cannot still be fined. In this law, it says that if at any point the law is then later the injunction is overturned and the law becomes fine again, they can still keep up what was happening. So this will ultimately, what it appears to be, will come tied into I think it's the Missouri law, where they're going to just overturn Roe v. Wade, and then they'll start arresting people for abortion. That's what's coming next. As for the Merrick Garland thing. So what happens here is the right is purposely misconstruing it. Josh Hawley was purposely lying about it. Fox News is still lying about it. I was watching their Chiron today, and it said, DOJ goes after parents concerned about CRT. That's how they're pushing it. They're adamantly pushing this lie. PragerU has their evil little children's channel, and they read the thing and they're like, "Oh, it doesn't say CRT, but we're gonna pretend it did." They literally said that. Like,
Yeah.
And I was literally arguing with people today, and they're saying, "Yeah, no, this is totally okay. What people are doing to argue this, because of Black Lives Matter or all this other nonsense." Like, the people who are doing this stuff on CRT are doing this out of an artificial culture war bubble that was basically generated by a single person. And he is still pushing that. He's basically the Andy Ngo of critical race theory. And they made this thing, like this fake bubble, and all these people freaked out, and now they're harassing people. As to Liberal Cluck's argument about, like, oh, it depends on, like, where you stand. Yeah, I think that's a good point. If you are in, like, more federal government and what you have the power over is more harm, it's more acceptable to protest a person like that. However, and I'm going to say this every time I talk about protest, no protest should ever involve violence. If at any point your protest involves violence, that means you have lost the point. That means you've no longer decided to deal what we accept as peaceful protest. You're allowed to protest, but if you're shifting to violence, you no longer care about the protest anymore. You're just trying to inflict your will on somebody. So this bill is just the SB 8 is one of the worst bills ever written. It's for an issue that has minority support. It's literally for one group of people. It's going to overturn Roe v. Wade, and hopefully we can get, like Liberal Cluck said, we can get some blue states to write the same legislation so we can just show you how ridiculous this is. And then as for the DOJ thing, they're purposely misconstruing it. They think that anger and craziness is acceptable because either the other side's doing it or they're just pretending it didn't happen.
No, very, very good point about the CRT being a bubble-induced moral panic. Rufo, I think, is who you're referring to.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, as creating this, and the reason that it's being done is because, and he came out and said they always tell on themselves because, like, oh my god, I'm so smart, I gotta let everybody know, right? Like, I do that. This is a human trait thing, right? And what it boils down to is that it has 3 words that scare conservatives: critical, race, and theory. So, like, those 3 words make it an anathema to conservative thought, because you can't be critical about a thing that you don't think should exist. Race is scary to you, and theory is just bullshit to them, right? So, like, they couldn't package this up better if they tried, and yet they're trying, and they're packaging it up better. And so there you go with that. Dan, what are your thoughts about this?
I've seen some people talk about critical race theory as being used as similar to history, but really it's a dictation of the current law, U.S. law now, and being racist. I do think, to the context that people will try to mention, well, they're teaching white people to hate your country, which is not true. I think we have to be critical, and I'm being specifically saying that on understanding what the United States did in the past, and understand of how to move forward with our present time, knowing our mistakes. That is a completely different question, and for sure has to be taught in public schools, even though there is a lot of nationalism running through people's minds about teaching or making our kids think that the United States is bad. Like, to me, as a historian, it's always going to be very mixed. Every country has did very terrible things to their own people, and what they did to other countries, and it's very much different to the result to how we're able to give the running theme of what countries people think as, like, being authoritative, and it probably talk to anarchists about it. But I do think that much of this stuff has to be learned entirely through class, or at least through some form of education through any teacher or social studies teacher or whatnot.
So
Fair point. to kind of piggyback off of what everybody has been saying, for those that don't know, I live in Austin, Texas. So the SB8 is not as dear to my heart as it is for women, but I still very much care about this thing. And it really is a perfectly crafted bill for what they want to accomplish. Except for the fact that Roberts is very wary of this kind of legislation, probably because, as others on this cast have mentioned, the ability for Democrats to do essentially the same thing to circumvent what is considered constitutional law. Now, one of the things that people may not know is that there have been a slew of women going out of state. The nearest state being for a lot of these women is Louisiana. And Louisiana themselves have a 16-week abortion ban. And so they're flooding to Louisiana, taking up capacity, and they're not able to get the services in the next nearest state in many cases. So that's one point for that. Another thing is, like, as Fresh Faces New Ideas said, is that the law has a clause in it that allows people to retroactively sue if there's an injunction and then it gets reinstated. This is something that's going to have to come from the Supreme Court, and with the Supreme Court that we have, it's really up in the air if this gets passed or not. Now, it might be surprising who I think might actually be the deciding vote against this. I think it might be Thomas. I think Clarence Thomas might be the deciding vote against SB8. Say again?
If the Supreme Court upholds this, it's going to be the end of the Constitution as we know it.
Yes.
Like, that'd be crazy if the Supreme Court upholds
Well, they're
that.
just they'll end abortion through the Mississippi one, and then they'll turn this down.
I don't know much about the Mississippi one. Could you just give a brief recap?
The Mississippi is the 12-week ban. It's basically what this is trying to do. It's the shorter ban.
Right. Okay.
It may actually be a 6-week ban as well, but it's basically the same law, but not crafted in this ridiculous way, directly designed to ignore the justices.
Gotcha.
So it's just going to directly challenge Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that will be interesting to pay attention to. We are at time. So one of the things that we like to do at the Crowdsourced Politics News Roundup is do a segment that we call News of the Weird. And on this week, we are going to cover 2 weird stories to button up this episode. And the first one is, how many nuts can a squirrel hide in a Chevy truck? Well, from the looks of it, about 40 pounds worth. Let me go ahead and try to zoom this in a bit. So this is, can y'all see it better now? Yeah. So this is the amount of nuts that walnuts a squirrel was able to squirrel away in the course of a couple of weeks into this man's truck. And I think it's interesting because wow, like 40 fucking pounds of walnuts. That's kind of ridiculous. Do you think that this is happening earlier in the year than it might have happened, though, for squirrels in this area? Or do you think this is just something squirrels have always done and it just happened to impact a human at this point?
I'd have to go with the second one. Yeah, I feel like
one.
it's something that is like perpetual this time of year, right? Like squirrels are always constantly, like, I think that's something like animals in general are constantly eating, constantly looking for sources of food. So I think it's just something that squirrels will do. But it's also just funny that this person didn't move their car in weeks, and now there's 40 pounds of walnuts in the engine of their car.
True.
I'm wondering if he took those walnuts and put it in a place where the squirrel couldn't get them, like an asshole, or if he found a way to keep the walnuts within the squirrel's reach.
I don't know. The Facebook says conversion about how many bushels can one squirrel red pack in 4 days. Hint: look at how many 5-gallon buckets are in this picture, then add full inner fenders. So yeah, he probably just moved them. I don't think he would, based on that comment.
And how many? I mean, I don't understand how you missed that.
And probably maybe he was just out of the area for 4 days. It was just a weekend. It's a long weekend, right? Yeah. COVID. Not having to go anywhere. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And then we have another story of
mullet's coming back. Oh no.
hold on. So for this particular one, this is a 5-year-old that entered the mullet competition and won, and I think he's adorable.
Well,
I don't know. What do you guys think? You think the Joe Dirt America shirt on this 5-year-old is saying anything about where we are, or do you think it, like me, it's just kind of a cute little story to like wrap this up with?
It's a cute story.
I'm just curious.
I'm for it. I had a rat tail till I was 13. No, I did. I grew it. It was like a family thing. We all had it.
Nice.
Look, the kid will look at it as a fancy picture or look at me like, oh, why is my hair? Why'd you make me do this? Like, come on, it's your hair. You grow it out, you cut it. He'll either think it's a funny story or look back and be like, oh, those are embarrassing baby pictures. But that's the beauty with hair. It's not like you grew a third arm or something that you can't like change. So, it's either an embarrassing picture or a happy story.
So the kid's cute, but like 5-year-olds are generally cute anyways. But I went to a county fair recently where there was a bunch of teenagers, and the amount of mullets that were there scares me for the future generations. So I also think that this has a tale to tale about our future.
All right. Well, everybody, with that, I am sad to say that we are out of time. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining the news roundup. Please, Fresh Faces, we'll start with you, but please go ahead and introduce, close yourself out, tell people where they can find you and the like, and then we'll call it a day.
Yeah, I'm Fresh Faces New Ideas. I do political politics 1 p.m. EST usually during the week, and then 5 p.m. on Thursdays. I do panels if they show up. But other than that, you can find me at twitch.tv/FreshFacesNewIdeas. You can find me on Twitter at FacesIdeas. The Twitter has the link to all my stuff. I'm going to have a link tree up on there eventually. I hope people follow me. I like to talk to people. Anyone on this panel wants to have a conversation about something in the future. Dan, I know you kind of mentioned that maybe you do some D&D stuff. I would, if you want to,
Yeah.
if you have an open space, I'd happily talk to you about something for that. I'm always looking. I haven't played like a real game. I've only played through Discord. But other than that, Fresh Faces, New Ideas. That's where I go.
All right. Thank you so much again, Fresh Faces, New Ideas, for joining the program. Liberal Cluck, go ahead and shout yourself out.
Yeah, I'm a Liberal Cluck. I do YouTube and Twitch. Like I said, I'm normally a debate bro, so my content's either just me playing video games and yelling about the news, or I'm debating somebody, which is me playing video games and yelling about the news at somebody. You can follow me on Twitter. It's just Liberal Cluck. And if you follow me on Twitter, hit me up. I'll give you my Discord, where I actually have a few right-wing people who will engage with me and or anybody in political conversations, which is real nice. So yeah, if you're interested in that, we're constantly talking about things, and I would really love to have more lefties with me, please.
Yeah, I'll join it.
But yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Liberal Cluck. You're more than welcome to come back. We do this every Thursday, so if this is something that you might be interested in, hit me up. Drummer, please go ahead and shout yourself out.
Sure. Well, yeah, like I said, I go by Drummer. You can find me on Twitter at the same name. You can also find me on YouTube at the same name. I do 3 videos every other week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, then I take a week off and do it again. You can also find my old cringy gaming videos on there if you want. Some of them were pretty good, so those are still up there. But yeah, those are the places you can find me, and that's what I do, and definitely had a good time tonight. So thank you for having me.
Thank you again, Drummer, for joining us. We greatly appreciate that. Dan the Step, please go ahead and shout yourself out.
Hi, I'm Dan the Step. I show up to all around the panels around everywhere. You can find me on Twitter on Dan the Step. You can also find me on the Prime panel open panels almost every day. I don't do and also support Cypher. He's a great guy. He gives me the opportunity to talk to you and have this conversation, and seems like a wonderful thing. I would love to come back to. Thank you.
Dan Step, that means so much to hear. I greatly appreciate you being on the program, and you're more than welcome to come back. We are also for everybody that is out there now, again, Cypher here, host and moderator of this panel, the Crowdsourced Politics Podcast News Roundup, as well as the Crowdsourced Politics and Cypher State. We are rebuilding our bench. We are going to be doing more podcast episodes, so not streamed to Twitch, where we talk about a variety of issues, polish it up, and put it out into the podcast world. Again, you can find that anywhere you find your podcast, Twitter or iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, wherever, we're there. If you like what you heard, and I know you did because you're still with us right now, go ahead and smash that like button for the follow, for the algorithm. It really does help us out. If you want to get into the community, if you are wanting to get into the community and you do Facebook, we actually run a Facebook group called at Facebook/group/Tribune Commons, where we've been where this podcast was basically born out of. We talk about everything, try to keep it respectful, but things can get heated, so just take it as you are. And Discord, we do have the Discord. Join the Discord, links are above. We use Discord in order to determine who is on the show, what kind of topics we're talking about, and everything like that. And if you have an idea for a show and you want to see something come to the show, go ahead and hit us up either on the Discord or on Twitter at Crowdsourced Poll. I tweet memes all the time and whatever else I feel like doing, having base takes according to some people, cringe according to others. But hey, get on the Twitter, make up your own mind, and follow us again at Crowdsource Poll. And one other thing that I like to let you all know is that Crowdsource Politics is part of a not-for-profit. Not-for-profit being the Crowdsourced Tribune. We are trying to grow this beyond a stream and beyond a podcast into a full-fledged, somewhat media enterprise. So if that's something that you want to get more info on, again, hit us up on social media and you will be able to find more info coming at you shortly. And as always, like we say at Crowdsourced Politics, keep your head up through a political storm.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
That's it.